A student recounts an afternoon of tragedy after a gunman descended upon her Florida college campus.
A Maryland senator fights for an American's freedom over 3,000 miles from home.
And we speak with farm workers about the immigration crackdown impacting their livelihoods.
A gunman opened fire on the campus of Florida State University. 2 people are dead and at least 6 are injured. Hi, I'm Dylan Luden.
And I'm Vincent Amonte. The suspected gunman has been confirmed to be a student at the university and the son of a sheriff's deputy. Shots rang out just before noon in the school's student union. Tallahassee police say the 20-year-old gunman used his father's service weapon in the shooting. Witnesses say the suspect's gun jammed, but he returned to his car and returned with another gun. Students were on lockdown for several hours until police could move in and evacuate.
I heard stuff going on outside. It apparently was the gunshots. I didn't think it was. I thought it was construction going on. All 60 of us hiked down to his office that was down the hall and all hid in there, turned the lights off, and we were sitting in there for about 4 hours until FSU PD came and got us out. I didn't start crying until actually after I had gotten out and my sister had come to pick me up, and that's where everything kind of hit, and I was like, wow, that really just happened to me. I could have died, I could have gotten injured, and there's people in the room crying the whole time. It's stressful, and it's something you never think is going to happen to you, and then it does.
All 6 shooting victims are said to be hospitalized in fair condition. FSU has canceled classes for the rest of the week and all events throughout the weekend.
Elsewhere in Florida, universities are working with ICE officials to question undocumented students about their immigration status.
A big goal of university should be establishing trust between the students and the administration, and a partnership with ICE kind of erodes away that trust between any international student who may feel threatened by deportation. I believe that it is the duty of a university to make sure that its student body is safe, but I don't believe immigrants pose any sort of threat to the safety of the students.
The agreement is sparking concerns of racism and possibly putting a damper on immigrant students seeking to attend American universities.
It's pretty much sending a message that if you're an immigrant, you are not wanted at the University of Florida. Even though Florida itself as a state is highly, highly dependent on immigrants. A lot of students that are Latinos, Asians, other immigrants from different parts of the world are not going to want to attend. So whatever they're trying to do, it's going to backfire economically speaking.
A total of 10 Florida colleges and universities have signed the agreement with ICE. The universities have yet to announce when the agreement will take effect.
They illegally abducted Mr. Abrego Garcia from Maryland and sent him to CECOT.
Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen is in El Salvador to hopefully speak with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, but the El Salvadorian government denied him the chance. Garcia is a Salvadorian national and Maryland resident deported to the country's maximum security prison back last month. The White House press secretary shut down the possibility of Garcia returning to the U.S.
Basic fact that he was illegally inside our country and had a lawful deportation order made him subject to removal back to his home country of El Salvador. And if he ever ends up back in the United States, he would immediately be deported again. There is no Maryland father. Let me reiterate. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is an illegal alien, MS-13 gang member, and foreign terrorist who was deported back to his home country.
A federal appeals court ruled today that the Trump administration can no longer continue to stall on the Supreme Court's order to bring back Garcia, saying he's, quote, entitled to due process.
It's been more than a week since the Department of Homeland Security tried to enter 2 LA elementary schools. The agents were denied entry, but teachers remain concerned.
I've had anger, I've had fear, I've had oh my God, disbelief, just all kinds of things going through my mind. Like, this is not the America that I thought would be. This is the weirdest thing to me. It's surreal. This is so freaking surreal to me that those kids would experience. Can you really imagine that? Like, why would you need to speak to children? What would be your purpose? I'm so confused by that.
According to the United Teachers of Los Angeles, 1/4 of LAUSD's immigrant students are undocumented. That's roughly 7,500 students in the district. LAUSD Superintendent Alberto Carvalho says additional resources will be sent to the 2 elementary schools. This includes social workers and counselors who work with immigrants.
The Trump administration has caused a wave of fear amongst immigrant communities nationwide. Brianna Rowe traveled to California's Central Valley to see how farm workers feel about the new policies.
California's Central Valley is the heart of American agriculture, but recent immigration policies are casting a shadow over the industry. President Donald Trump has already deported thousands of undocumented immigrants. The farm workers I spoke with are all documented, but they still feel the effects of these new immigration policies. Everardo Gomez says the attacks on the immigrant community are not fair.
Well, right now we feel bad because the President Donald Trump, he speaks it like racism, you know?
Antonio Ramirez has been a farm worker for over 25 years. He says he feels betrayed.
And it's going to affect a lot because a lot of us are old already. We gave in a lot already. And it's important because, you know, how we're going to harvest the grapes, the peaches, all those things.
They tend the land and care for the crops that feed the nation. But California field workers are facing much more than just hard labor. With Trump enforcing stricter immigration policies, many of them are living in fear of losing their jobs, their homes, and even their families. What happens to them doesn't just stay here in the Central Valley, it affects the rest of the country. Many farm workers are staying home because of the ICE raids.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people who don't want to come out, you know, because what people say, what they see, what they hear on the news. They hear that there are deportations out there, that there are detainments, and people just don't want to go out, understandably. And if there aren't any workers, who's going to do it? It's important that there are workers on the fields.
The impact is already being felt, with labor shortages causing delays in harvesting crops. Many are saying these policies are unfair to the workers, to the owners, and families struggling to put food on the table.
And we are actually here joined at the desk with Brianna herself. So thank you so much for joining us to talk about this. So, you know, without your report, you know, you spoke to a lot of farm workers. Was that difficult trying to find people who would be willing to speak to you?
Yes, it was difficult, especially since right now they're not harvesting. They're just like tying everything so everything can grow. But I was driving around for hours just looking for people willing to talk, and I would approach many people actually, and they just kindly declined, and I assume it's because they maybe didn't have documentation. I don't know, but a lot of people I did talk to is because I had like a connection in which if someone used to work there, and then they found a coworker that used to work there that I can talk to, and yeah, it was pretty hard.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, I know, Brianna, you're from that part of California, so I know you must have some personal feelings about the story too.
Yeah, so growing up, my grandparents worked in the fields until they were old, and then my mom also worked in the fields for a period of time before she got her job. And growing up in that situation, you really see how immigrant communities really come to a place where there's more opportunities to establish a life for the future generations. And because of them, I was able to go to school.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely a very heartwarming personal story on that one. Yeah. But thank you so much for joining us at the desk and for that report as well.
Thank you.
Well, tax season is difficult for everybody, but this year undocumented taxpayers were dealt a serious blow. Reporter Gianmarco Vasquez is in the newsroom to explain.
Thank you so much. You know, the Internal Revenue Service finalized a deal with the Department of Homeland Security, which allows for the sharing of taxpayer information. Now, this information could be used to help identify undocumented immigrants.
Definitely scary. I feel like that's the only way I can put it. I have parents who, unfortunately, are gonna have to suffered through this. It's one of the reasons why it took them a while to even file their taxes, just because that was a concern that they had since the beginning of the year. It just blew my mind.
Now, undocumented individuals living in the U.S. can pay taxes by using an individual taxpayer identification number, or ITIN. Immigration attorney Alex Galvez says that this unprecedented agreement may discourage undocumented taxpayers from filing, even those who have done so for decades.
For the last 30 years, there's been an understanding that IRS was not going to divulge any private information to immigration, to ICE, or the Department of Immigration in general. There's no doubt that we've already started seeing the consequences. A lot of immigrants are not filing their taxes. They're asking for extensions.
And according to the Center for Migration Studies, in 2022, undocumented immigrants paid more than $59 billion in federal taxes and more than $13 billion in state and local taxes. And in California alone, home to roughly 2 million undocumented immigrants, the California Budget and Policy Center estimates that taxpayers using ITIN numbers paid over $8 billion in state taxes.
A Columbia student is detained during his citizenship interview.
And protesters.
We are here live at SCA, where a movie screening for undocumented students is being hosted.
And protesters filled campuses after the arrest of student activists. An immigration expert shares what international students need to know.
USG election season has kicked off.
They have a huge game on Thursday, right?
Huge.
Prior to that, he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat.
And a warning tonight about a massive storm heading our way.
We're live here at the Galen Center.
What would y'all do if you had $2.5 million?
Music, art, and women empowerment.
And she put her stamp on Big Ten history.
Those are men swimming like fish.
Thanks for watching.
Annenberg TV News. You never miss an episode.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Thanks for watching.
So, live from the Halo is USC Annenberg's take on NPR's Tiny Desk concerts. This is like a platform for USC students and adjunct students just to perform and play their music for an audience.
On Monday, Columbia student Mohsin Madawi was arrested by immigration officials. He was there to complete his last step of the U.S. citizenship interview. A federal judge ruled that the Trump administration did not have the authority to remove him from the U.S.
I think it's outrageous what they're doing, and I'm heartened to see the outpouring of support that's come from their fellow students, from faculty, from the legal community to stand up and defend them.
While international students are supposed to have the same right to an education as U.S. citizens, that's not currently the case.
Although you have the same rights, that doesn't mean that it plays out the same within immigration law, because those agencies are not always required to look at whether you've been convicted. They're looking at kind of your character in some of these applications.
Madawi had expected to graduate next month from Columbia University.
USC has 17,000 international students on campus, but off campus, their student visa status may not be able to protect them. Reporter Dana Hammerstrom has the story.
The federal government is targeting international students and revoking their visas, citing them for old misdemeanors and protesting.
I think that anyone who is on a foreign student visa should be a little bit concerned.
On college campuses in New York and Massachusetts, students have already been detained. Protests in support of these students are happening on campuses across the U.S. Columbia student Mahmoud Khalil and Tufts student Rumesa Ozturk are both being held in Louisiana. Mohsen Madawi, a student at Columbia, was taken into custody in Vermont. Professor Bill Hing has been working in immigration law for 50 years and has never seen the government's new strategy for revoking visas, targeting people who take positions against the U.S. government.
There is every reason to believe that on many campuses, there are informants, formal and informal. And I know it sounds like a police state, and it is for many people. And so students have to be careful. Non-citizens have to be careful. I would say even people with a green card have to be careful.
A visa is necessary for foreigners entering the U.S., whether as temporary travelers or permanent residents. There are two types of visas: non-immigrant visas for people traveling to the U.S. temporarily, and immigrant visas for those moving to the U.S. permanently.
USC Immigration Co-Director has advice for international students at USC.
If you're having an encounter with a cop or a Border Patrol agent or an ICE officer, you generally don't have to answer questions. You have rights not to provide information to law enforcement that can be used against you.
According to Professor Hing, students can protect their visa status by thinking twice before posting political content on social media.
Yeah, and we are actually here joined on the couch with Dana, so thank you so much for being here with us today. Well, USC definitely has a very large international student population. I mean, it really makes up a significant part of our student body here. So what are kind of the feelings from international students here on campus? What are they feeling about these new laws?
Sure. So in talking with the folks that I got to speak with today, they said students are kind of living in fear. They're taking some new precautions to spend most of their time on USC campus. USC is private property, and so it is safer there than maybe off campus might be. Some students I was hearing have stopped driving their cars, have been ordering groceries in, and are just trying to stay within the boundaries of campus.
Wow, so really limiting kind of their everyday activities there. I know your report did touch on a little bit of this, but just some kind of tips for people who might have student visas. I know some of your professionals there talked about it. So what were kind of some of those tips that international students should keep in mind?
Sure. I think the biggest one to really emphasize is that social media aspect. I guess the Trump administration is using artificial intelligence to go through the internet and try to figure out who has visas, who is international, and all of that jazz. And so I think recognizing that your digital footprint is something that hopefully you can scrub of political talk, that just might be the safest route. It's just a very scary time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for that report, Dana. I'll now toss back to Dylan.
Now we go to our anchor, Clarissa Cuenca, who is live in SCA for an event that is bringing together undocumented students and allies.
Thank you, Dylan. We are here at the USC Cinematic Arts School, where the Undocumented Trojan Success Assembly, or UTSA, is hosting a screening of the movie Bajo la Misma Luna. The movie...
When I miss her, I should look at the moon, because she'll be looking at it too. She's been working in America for 4 years, so she can bring me there soon.
The movie follows a young boy on a journey of crossing the Mexican border and has become a glance into the lives of undocumented individuals in the United States, highlighting the hopes and preservation of immigrants. The film screening will be followed by a discussion about the film and the immigration experience in the United States. And here with us, we have Alexa, who is a member of UTSA. Tell us a bit about tonight's event. So, Alexa, what do you think is important about tonight's event?
Absolutely. So today's event is incredibly important because accurate film and media representation is super important to not only highlight and humanize our stories, but also spread awareness of, the obstacles and barriers that we face. I grew up watching this film when I was growing up, so it meant a lot for me to, see and my life kind of reflected through the screen and being represented that way. So it's very beautiful for us to come together and, for a long time, I think our community has been misrepresented, and so coming together and watching a beautiful movie that humanizes our stories is super beautiful.
No, and I hope you enjoyed the movie tonight and the event. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Event coordinators Emily and Giovanna of the Undocumented Trojan Assembly tell us more about what they hope the organization is able to offer the members through events like tonight.
We really just want to foster that community, just because it can be, especially at times like this, it can be really hard to find a community that really understands where you're coming from and your perspective.
We're very intentional with our events, and people come out feeling seen, heard, welcomed, and again, safe, like really feeling like the space we're creating is something that they can return to and be vulnerable in.
Upcoming events for undocumented students hosted by UTSA include their annual UndocuGrad, a graduation ceremony for graduating undocumented students. Live from SCA for UTSA, for Annenberg Media, I'm Clarissa Cuenca.
Time now for the lightning round, when we take a minute to bring you some of the top stories that fall outside the theme of today's show. President Donald Trump threatened to fire Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell again for not cutting interest rates. The Supreme Court agreed to hear Trump's request to end birthright citizenship, but deferred the administration's request to implement the plan immediately. Trump and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni discussed a potential trade deal between the U.S. and Europe. Trump said, quote, "There will be a trade deal, 100%. Should the Menendez brothers be free? A judge pushed back today's highly anticipated hearing on the matter, which is the second time this has happened. The hearing is now scheduled for May 9th. A judge found Google guilty of violating antitrust laws. The judge said Google knowingly acquired and bolstered monopolistic power in its web advertising business. That's our roundup for the day. Make sure you tune in next week for another lightning round.
So what you're looking at next to me is the Japanese-American memorial in Venice. It memorializes more than 1,000 people in the LA area of Japanese ancestry who were sent to internment camps during World War II. Today was the 8th annual commemoration. Speakers emphasized the relevance of the memorial in light of the current political climate.
So many people recognize that we have to defend the First Amendments, the rights of people, and I was so happy to hear so many people say that, yes, what happened in 1942 is happening right now on our streets.
We're repeating the harm. We're repeating trauma. When you have generational trauma, no one really talks about generational guilt.
The Monuments Committee will continue their event later tonight at Hama Sushi for a fundraiser aimed towards maintaining the monument and funding the annual Arnold Maida Manzanar Pilgrimage Grant.
Thanks for watching See It Live. From everyone at Annenberg Media, I'm Dylan Luden.
And I'm Vincent DeMonte. For more coverage, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time. Good night.